The diner buzzed with the usual late-night chatter. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon lingered in the air as Claire moved between tables, balancing a tray in one hand and a notepad in the other. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it kept the bills paid. The town of Greenridge was small, the kind of place where everybody knew everybody. Claire had spent her entire 23 years here, never once leaving its quiet streets. She had grown up believing she was an orphan. Her mother, Evelyn, had died in a tragic car accident when Claire was just a child. At least, that's what her grandmother had always told her. Tonight was no different. That was until he walked in. A black car pulled up outside, sleek and polished, the kind that didn't belong in Greenridge. The man who stepped out was tall, immaculately dressed in an expensive charcoal suit. His silver hair was neatly combed back, and he carried himself with an air of authority. His presence sucked the air out of the room. He chose the booth by the window. Claire instinctively wiped her hands on her apron and approached him. "What can I get you?" she asked, pen poised over the notepad. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes, sharp and piercing, studied her in a way that made her skin prickle. "Coffee," he finally said, his voice smooth yet commanding. "Black, no sugar." Claire nodded and hurried back behind the counter, unable to shake the strange feeling creeping up her spine. Something about him felt off. As she returned with the coffee, the man pulled out his wallet, a thick, expensive leather one. He took out a few crisp $100 bills and placed them on the table, seemingly uninterested in the menu. Claire's eyes flickered toward the wallet as he set it down. A photograph peeked out from one of its compartments, and that was the moment her world cracked open. She knew that face. She knew it too well. The photograph was of her mother, the very same mother who had died 20 years ago. Claire's fingers trembled as she reached for the wallet before she could stop herself. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man's expression remained unreadable. He looked from the wallet to Claire, his gaze calculating. Then, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Guilt? "That's impossible," she continued, gripping the table for support. "That's my mother." The man finally sighed, rubbing his temple as if the weight of some enormous secret had just become unbearable. "I think," he said carefully, "we need to talk." Claire's heart raced. She wanted to scream, but the words were stuck in her throat. How could this man have a picture of her mother? It was impossible. Evelyn was dead. Everyone knew that. The man seemed to sense her panic. He pushed the wallet aside and leaned forward slightly, his fingers clasped together as though he was about to reveal something monumental. "My name is Jonathan Bishop," he began, his voice low, almost too calm for the weight of his words. "And I've been looking for you." The air in the diner seemed to grow thicker, heavier. Claire didn't know whether to run, to scream, or to just sit there and listen. Her mind was racing, but her body refused to move. "I'm sorry, but I don't." "Your mother didn't die in a car accident." "Claire," Jonathan interrupted. The word struck her like a physical blow. Her head spun, and for a moment, she felt like the world around her was spinning too fast to hold on to. "No," she whispered, barely able to find her voice. She did." Jonathan shook his head. "No, I know what you've been told, but your mother didn't die that night. She faked her own death. She went into hiding." Claire blinked, trying to process the absurdity of what he was saying. You're lying," my grandmother said. "Your grandmother wasn't the one who found her," Jonathan cut in, his eyes darkening. "I was. I'm the one who helped her disappear. She made me promise I would never tell you." Claire's breath hitched. Her knees felt weak, and she gripped the edge of the table for support. "No, that's not possible. Why would she do that? Why would she leave me?" Jonathan hesitated, as though choosing his words carefully. "Because she was in danger. Her life, it was worth more than just the two of you. There were things she got involved in, things I couldn't explain to you then. She didn't leave you because she didn't love you. Claire, she did it to protect you." Claire's mind reeled. The questions were piling up like a tidal wave, crashing against her chest. She felt as though she was drowning in them. She had so many questions, so many things she wanted to say, but her throat had closed up, and all she could do was stare at Jonathan in disbelief. "Why are you telling me this now?" she finally managed to ask. Jonathan's face grew somber, and for the first time, his impenetrable expression cracked. Because it's time for you to know the truth. It's time for you to understand who you really are. Claire opened her mouth to ask him what he meant, but Jonathan held up a hand, silencing her. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another photo. This one was different, a more recent photo, one Claire had never seen before. It was of her mother, but it wasn't the smiling woman Claire remembered from her childhood. No, this version of Evelyn was much older, her face weathered by years of secrets, but she was still unmistakably the woman Claire had loved. And in the photo, Evelyn was standing next to a man Claire didn't recognize. A man who, as soon as she laid eyes on him, sent a jolt of recognition through her. "You've seen him before," Jonathan said, noticing her reaction. Claire's mind spun. She had, but where? When? The man in the photo had a cold, calculating stare, and his presence was overwhelming, even in just a picture. He looked like someone who controlled the world. Someone dangerous. "Who is he?" Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan paused before answering. "His name is Victor Falkner, and is the reason your mother disappeared." The name Victor Falkner echoed in Claire's mind like an ominous drumbeat. She had never heard of him before, yet the moment Jonathan spoke his name, her body stiffened. There was something about the man in the photo, something unsettling, that made her blood run cold. She didn't know why, but she could feel that name weaving into the very fabric of her past in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Jonathan watched her carefully, noticing the unease that crept across her face. Victor Falkner is a man with immense power, more than you could ever imagine. He's the reason your mother had to vanish. Claire, he's the reason you were kept in the dark. Claire's mind was reeling. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What does he want with my mother? Why was she involved with someone like that?" Jonathan set the photo down on the table, his fingers lingering on the edge, as though he was reluctant to explain the full extent of the story. His eyes grew distant, haunted by memories Claire could only begin to fathom. "I can't tell you everything, not yet," Jonathan said. "But what I can tell you is this. Your mother wasn't just an ordinary woman. She was involved in something dangerous, something that goes far beyond what you know. Falkner's empire, it spans continents. He deals in things most people never even realize exist. Things that control lives, that break them. And your mother, Claire, was more involved in that world than she ever let you see." Claire's heart skipped a beat. The woman she had loved, the woman she thought she knew so well, was hiding something dark, something far from the image of the caring mother she remembered. "But why?" Claire's voice cracked. "Why would she do that? Why would she keep me in the dark? I was just a little girl. She could have trusted me. She should have trusted me." Jonathan looked at her with a mix of sorrow and pity. She didn't want you to know. She didn't want you to be part of this. She loved you too much to drag you into it. That's why she disappeared. Claire. To give you a chance at a normal life, away from the madness that Falkner would have dragged you into. But there's more to it than that. Claire leaned in, her hands gripping the edge of the table, her eyes never leaving his. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a whisper of desperation. Jonathan sighed deeply, and the weight of his words seemed to hang in the air. He glanced around the diner as if making sure no one was listening before he continued. "Your mother wasn't the only one Falkner wanted. He wanted you too." Claire recoiled, her chest tightening with fear. "Me? Why? What could he possibly want with me?" Jonathan met her gaze, his expression grim. "You're not just anyone, Claire. You're his daughter." Claire's mind went blank. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. The words didn't make sense. She looked down at the photo on the table again, at her mother's face, and then back at Jonathan. Her mouth went dry, and the world around her seemed to fade into a blur. "Wait! What?" she stammered. "You're saying that Victor Falkner is my father?" Jonathan nodded slowly. "Yes, is your biological father. And that's why your mother had to keep you away from him. He wasn't just some dangerous man she got involved with. He was a man who would stop at nothing to use you for his own gain. He wanted control of you, Claire. He wanted to mold you into someone who would serve his empire." Claire stood up suddenly, her legs unsteady beneath her. No, this isn't possible. She stopped herself, choking on the words, as her mind tried to absorb what he was saying. Her mother, the woman who had raised her, had been in a secret relationship with a man like him, a man whose very presence made her skin crawl. Jonathan reached out and gently placed a hand on her arm, his grip firm but comforting. I know it's a lot to process, but it's the truth. And now, Falkner knows you're alive. He has been searching for you. The realization hit her like a slap in the face. Everything she had known about her life, everything she had believed to be true, was now shattered. Her mother's death had been a lie. Her true father was a man she had never known, a man who was more dangerous than she could ever imagine. And now, that man was coming for her. The walls of the diner seemed to close in around her as the weight of it all threatened to crush her. The life she thought she had was a facade. And worse yet, she had no idea what kind of hell was waiting for her next. The diner felt colder now, the clatter of dishes and the hum of low conversations fading into the background as Claire's world narrowed to a singular, horrifying thought. Victor Falkner was alive, and he was coming for her. Jonathan didn't wait for Claire to respond to the tidal wave of revelations. He had seen this reaction before, and he knew that panic could cripple a person if they didn't face it head-on. I can help you, Claire, but you need to trust me. This is bigger than you think. Claire stood frozen, her mind a swirling vortex of disbelief, anger, and fear. She wanted to lash out, to scream, but no words came. Instead, she took a trembling breath and turned away from Jonathan, pressing her palms against her eyes as if willing the nightmare away. This can't be real, she thought. It can't be. But the proof was before her, the photo of her mother, the man in the picture, and Jonathan's words that hung in the air like a death sentence. "You'll say my father is a monster." Claire finally managed to speak, her voice raw with emotion. "And now he's hunting me." Jonathan nodded. "That's right. But the good news, if there's any, is that he doesn't know where you are yet. He's been searching for you for years, and he doesn't even realize that you've been living right under his nose." Claire's breath hitched. "What do you mean? How did you find me?" "I've been watching Falkner for a long time," Jonathan said, his expression unreadable. "I'm not just some random stranger, Claire. I'm a part of this world too. But I wasn't involved with your mother's past, not like he was. I've kept my distance for years. When I found out about you, when I saw the resemblance, I knew you were his daughter." Claire's mind reeled. She was starting to piece together the faintest outline of a larger, darker puzzle. But she didn't want to hear anymore. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed into a nearby chair. She needed time to make sense of it all. Jonathan's voice softened, but there was no mistaking the urgency in his tone. "You need to leave this town. And you need to leave now. Falkner has eyes everywhere, and it won't be long before he figures out where you are." The words hit her like a sledgehammer. She couldn't leave. This was her life, her home. How could she just walk away from everything? From everything she knew? But then she thought about her mother, who had faked her death, who had disappeared to keep her safe. And now Claire was the one in danger. It was all connected. Falkner's reach was farther than she had ever imagined. "I'm not going to let him take me," Claire muttered under her breath, her fist tightening on the edge of the table. "I won't let him have me." Jonathan's expression softened, but it was filled with a sorrow that only added to Claire's growing dread. "It's not that simple, Claire. He's not just a man with power and money. He's a man who will do anything to control you. And you have something he wants more than anything." Claire's stomach twisted in confusion. What could I possibly have that he wants? Jonathan met her gaze, his eyes dark and heavy. "You're his heir." The word struck her with such force that for a moment, the world around her seemed to blur. She felt lightheaded, her pulse pounding in her ears. "No," she whispered. "That can't be true. I'm just a waitress. I'm nobody." Jonathan leaned in closer, his voice low and urgent. "You don't understand. Your mother wasn't just running from Falkner to protect you. She was hiding you from the legacy you were born into. Your father is the head of a global empire. But you, Claire, are the key to his future. You're the heir to everything he controls." Claire's chest constricted as the weight of those words settled in. An empire? She had always believed her life was simple. She worked her shifts, went home, and dreamed of a future that didn't involve rich men with hidden agendas. Now, in the span of an hour, everything had changed. Her past, her identity, everything she thought she knew was a lie. Jonathan stood up, his gaze serious and unwavering. "We don't have much time. Falkner will come for you, and when he does, he'll stop at nothing to take you back into his world. You can't stay here. Not anymore." Claire stood, shaking her head, trying to piece together the fragments of a shattered reality. "So what now? What am I supposed to do? Leave everything behind? Run?" Jonathan nodded gravely. "Yes, it's the only way. You have to trust me. I'll help you. But we need to move fast. Falkner has a network of people looking for you. They're everywhere, Claire." The panic was building inside her, and it was becoming harder to breathe. The thought of leaving everything behind, running from the only life she had known, seemed impossible. But Jonathan's words, his stern, urgent words, felt like a lifeline. If she didn't leave, if she didn't trust him, she would be dead within days. Falkner would find her, and when he did, there would be no escaping the world she was born into. Claire's legs felt like they were made of stone as she stared out the diner window. The streets of Greenridge were quiet, the world still oblivious to the storm that was about to descend upon her. She had always known her life was ordinary, boring, even, but the truth Jonathan had just revealed was anything but ordinary. It was the kind of truth that shattered everything she knew about herself and the world around her. She turned to face him, her mind reeling from the sheer enormity of what she was being asked to do. "You want me to just leave?" Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Leave everything behind? My life, my home, everything I've known." Jonathan's face softened, but there was no trace of hesitation in his eyes. "I know it's hard, Claire, but this is the only way. If you stay here, if you remain in Greenridge, you will be in danger every single day. Falkner won't stop until he has you under his control. And if he does..." He trailed off, the unspoken horrors hanging between them. The thought of Falkner, the man who had everything at his fingertips, the man who was her father, coming for her was terrifying. Claire had spent her entire life believing she was ordinary, a girl from a small town with a simple life. But now she was the heir to an empire she couldn't even begin to understand. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized she was no longer the person she had once been. "What if I don't want to be a part of that world?" Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I don't want anything to do with him? With any of it?" Jonathan's gaze darkened. "I understand. Believe me, I do. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Falkner has made his plans, and you're at the center of them. There's no running away from this. Not anymore." She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself, trying to think. She had always wanted more than the quiet life she had. But this was a nightmare. Her bloodline, her identity, it had all been hidden from her, locked away for her safety. Now that she knew the truth, she was a target, a pawn in a dangerous game. Suddenly, the front door of the diner swung open, the bell above it chiming as a group of customers walked in. Claire looked up at them, almost feeling guilty for their ignorance. They had no idea that her life, her world, was about to explode into chaos. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, and turned back to Jonathan. "I can't just leave. Not yet," she said, her voice steady now. "I need to know everything. I need to understand what kind of world I'm dealing with, what kind of danger I'm in. If I'm going to leave this town, leave my life, I need to be prepared. I can't just run away blindly." Jonathan's lips tightened, but he nodded. "I can give you everything you need to know. I can tell you about Falkner's empire, the people he surrounds himself with, the kind of power he holds. But you have to make the choice, Claire. In the end, it's your choice whether you want to confront him or run." For the first time in her life, Claire felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming her own identity. She had been living a lie for 23 years, and now she had to decide whether she was going to embrace the truth and fight, or whether she would continue running from it. The decision was overwhelming. But one thing was clear. If she stayed in Greenridge, she would never have peace. Falkner would find her, and everything she loved would be destroyed. But if she left, if she ran with Jonathan, she would be stepping into a world she couldn't even fathom. A world that would demand everything from her: her freedom, her safety, even her soul. Claire stood up straight, looking Jonathan in the eye. "Okay, I'll go with you. I'll leave this town, but on one condition." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's that?" "I need to be ready. I need to understand exactly what I'm up against. And when I face him, I'm not running anymore. I'm going to face Falkner, and I'm going to make him understand that I'm not just some pawn in his game. I won't be controlled." Jonathan's face softened, a rare look of admiration crossing his features. "I knew you had it in you. All right, Claire, we'll do this on your terms. We'll prepare, and when the time comes, you'll face him on your own ground." With that, Claire took a deep breath. The world outside seemed to blur into the distance, but one thing was certain: she had made her choice. The life she once knew was gone, and now the fight for her freedom and her future was just beginning. As Claire turned and walked out of the diner, the night air seemed to carry a strange weight. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. And somewhere, far off in the distance, Victor Falkner was undoubtedly preparing for the same confrontation. The truth had set Claire free, but it had also set in motion a deadly game she couldn't escape. The only question that remained was, who would win